Hello, everyone. I wanted to add a little note to the beginning of this week's episode. We recorded this one 3 weeks ago before the killing of George Floyd, which sparked off a worldwide series of protests. I didn't feel right releasing this episode without saying anything about it. Punk Lotto Pod is an anti-racist podcast. We support the Black Lives Matter movement and are strongly in favor of defunding the police. If you are able to, please help. Whether it be by showing up at the protests, donating money to your local bail funds. I personally donated to the Charlotte Uprising Bail Fund, and I know Dylan has been part of protests in Phoenix last week, and he's donated money as well. I bring this up not just to highlight that, oh, look at me, I'm doing such a great thing, but I wanted to make sure that people know that this is not just lip service. Like, this is something we truly believe in. If you go out and protest, please be careful. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. Wear a mask, quarantine yourself 14 days if possible. Look up ways to stay safe from tear gas and pepper spray. And if you're going to a protest and are white, please listen to the black organizers and follow their lead. These are their lives we are fighting for. If you donate, please send money to local bail funds, the ACLU, Reclaim the Block, Black Lives Matter, Black Visions Collective, to the families of the victims of police violence. There are so many different GoFundMe's and places that you could send money to. So, we love you, and please stay safe out there and enjoy the episode if you can.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And joining us today is the owner and operator of the online art and music store and merch store of the Machine Shop and Lepore. Ann, how's it going?
Hello, it's going well.
Is that an accurate description of the Machine Shop?
Sure, yeah. When we started it, we had like the tagline where art and music collide. So you got it right.
Yeah. I mean, I know you have a lot of original art, and your store is for people who haven't heard you on the show before, your store is the main online merch source for Kepi Guli and a handful of other artists.
Yep. And I have some original like t-shirts and stuff like that, and just like music that I like, and I just wanted to get out there to the world.
Yeah, it's definitely a really cool site, and if you haven't been to it before or yet, go check it out, and we'll have links and stuff in our show notes as well. Hope everyone is staying safe in the quar. The current world we're living in is a little weird, and we'll probably continue that way for a while, but we're here, and just stay home and wear your mask. Since we've taken a break, this will be the first episode we do in our new format, and
Modified.
Yeah, modified is probably more accurate.
Improved.
I think so. More streamlined. Or more ergonomic. We're not going to do EPs on the show anymore. EPs have a really important place in punk rock. I'd say punk is probably one of the genres that utilize the EP to its best potential. And there's so many like great EPs out there. But it was getting increasingly difficult in finding streams for EPs and actual EPs and not like a demo or a single. Plus, it's just hard to research two bands in every episode. So this will be the first one without our EPs, but that's not to say that we'll never talk about an EP ever again. So
yeah, I think we'll find a way to include that format in the future. We'll just do some tweaking, I think.
Yeah. And also, we're slightly changing how we're selecting our albums to discuss. Before, it originally started as just completely random
and then it turned into a version where we just pulled a bunch of options and then gave them to our guests to choose from. And then now we've just, in for the sake of simplicity and for our guests wanting to talk about these records, we've decided we are now just going to assign our guests a year and then allow them to pick any punk or punk-related record from that year. So I think this will create a little bit more deeper conversation. I feel like people can talk about things more that they already love than just being like, well, that record's all right.
Yeah. It took us too many episodes to realize that not everyone wants to subject themselves to really obscure punk records and then like dissect them.
You mean everyone isn't like us?
Sorry to anyone who got some real duds, but
reach out to us.
We'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Let you talk about something you actually like.
So, for this episode, Anne, we assigned you the year 1984.
There are things that I'd like to say, but I'm never talking to you again. There's things I'd like to phrase somewhere, but I'm never talking to you again. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin. He will wait until you give yourself to him.
And before you tell us which album you picked, we thought we would talk about a couple other records that came out this year.
That sounds great.
Sure. So, 1984 was a very interesting year for American punk and hardcore. This is the time period when a lot of the hardcore bands are starting to evolve their sound into, I guess, what would become post-hardcore, or even involving some more like post-punk elements. And the perfect example is probably my favorite record from 1984, and it's Double Nickels on the Dime by the Minutemen. It's pretty much a perfect record for me. I don't know if that everyone else feels the same way about this record, but I genuinely love the Minutemen. They're probably my favorite band from this time period, and this record is just like a monster. It's a double LP with 50 songs or something like. It's close to 50 songs. I don't know the exact number at this point, but I genuinely love this record a lot.
Yeah, this is a big and a very ambitious year for punks, because one of my favorite records of all time and one of my favorite bands from this time period, probably my number one band from this time period, is Zen Arcade by Husker Du. Another double record. Everyone wanted to make their Tommy, I guess. When did Sandinista come out? That was like 80, wasn't it?
Is that a triple?
That's the triple, yeah. I mean, London Calling was 79, so there's precedent. But yeah, this is the shift. I mean, hardcore was such a new thing still at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already, I mean, I guess that's just punk. Always wanting to get a little further out there, but shifting towards post-hardcore and some more experimental sounds.
Interesting, you guys. I really love Zen Arcade. I think it's awesome. I have never really fully gelled with the Minutemen. I don't dislike them. I think I just haven't really like spent a lot of time with them. So maybe that'll be like a little assignment for me until the next time we talk. I can, because I gave you guys an assignment to listen to the fall, and I made a playlist for you. So maybe you could make me a Minutemen playlist.
Oh, that'd be
I would
fun.
I would like that very much because I really only know like hits. Obviously, there's no
Mhm.
hits, but the songs that everyone knows. I have not spent more than a minute listening to the Minutemen.
Well, that's great because a lot of their songs are a minute or less. So
That's great because I love minute or less songs.
yeah, that'll be fun. I should do that. I should put together a playlist of Minutemen songs. Yeah, that'd be fun. They really are one of my favorite bands from this time period, and they're very different. They were so closely tied with the hardcore scene, and their style is so much more unique. Like they're not nearly as heavy as any band that they're associated with, but they definitely played fast, and they're not jangle pop at all. But their guitars, I feel like, I don't know, word influence on that sound slightly. I don't know. I've never looked too deep into that, but yeah, they have a ton of material as well. So
Yeah, I definitely have stuff of theirs. I have this album, I'm sure. But like I said, it's the kind of thing that I think, I don't know if I always thought maybe they were like a little too jazzy for me, and I just kind of moved on. You know what I mean?
yeah, well, speaking of jazz, we'll talk about that with our album later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but speaking of the fall, and there's a fall record in
There is a
'84.
fall record in
Where does this
84.
one land for you?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about, I was like, oh, this is a great album. I love this album, The Wonderful and Frightening World of the Fall. But then when I looked at my playlist that I made for you guys, not one song from this album is on that playlist, which means not even one song from this album made it into a playlist of 29 songs. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a really, really great album. I just really love The Fall a lot. So I was trying to make a playlist that was like lean, and 29 songs with lean. It was probably like 2x4 was probably like in an original incarnation of this
I want to
playlist.
say I've heard that song by them
Yeah,
at some point.
I don't
So.
know. I don't know. I think it's a really good one. It's obviously doesn't contain one of my top 29 songs of theirs, but Slang King is another really so yeah, I 84 is a really interesting year for me because I was in high school and like ending my sophomore year, starting my junior year, and that's like a really like seminal time for people.
Yeah.
So and for me, this is the time, like I had been exposed to music and to punk pretty early, and at this point though, this is really when everything started happening for me, for when I was like really getting like heavily into music, when music became my life between like 83 and 85. This is when like the identity of me as a person who loves punk and who loves music, and that's how I would identify myself. That's when it all gelled.
This is like a pretty big year. Like it's a weird like transitionary year, but there's also just a lot of records from really well-known bands that they're, I don't know if they're necessarily their most classic records, but they're still pretty well regarded. One of them is Susie and the Banshees, Hyena. I know, Anne, you're a fan of Susie, and I listened to about half of this record before we started recording today, just because I ran out of time. But do you have any thoughts on this particular record?
I do. I do. I'm glad you mentioned that. For me, this is like a cutoff point where I don't like it as much anymore. This is probably like the first album that I like I don't like listen to a lot. I mean, there are some really good songs on it, but I feel like it drags at times. I don't think it's like track, like the order of the songs is great. So there's times when I'm just like bored and like, So I feel like this is, to me, when they started to lose their really, like, their what's I thought was exciting about them.
Do you like the following record, Tinderbox, or is it sort of the
Less.
same?
I like that less than
Oh.
this. Everything after this goes down in my esteem.
Because I listened to Tinderbox a couple weeks ago for the first time because I'm doing a project on my own where I listened to major records from 1986 that I've never heard. So that's the year I was born. So I listened to that one a few weeks ago and I loved it. And I was curious to see if it's just everything after Hyenas where you just stop lining, or if
It's
you
not
like
that I
that one
stopped
too.
listening. I like some of the later stuff, but I think for me, they no longer released any albums that I would like stand behind after that. There's definitely songs that I like, and I like some of the songs that are kind of crappy to like. But I'm not a real big fan of the dance. I don't really like it when they started doing like more disco-y. What, like Cities and Dust, I would consider like kind of their disco time. And then on after that. So that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
But I would go back to Tinderbox and check it out
Yeah,
again.
it's definitely more pop centric, so then maybe that's part of it. But then they went in a weird direction later, like the '88 record was a Peekaboo is the big single off that record.
Yeah, it's like
Kind of an odd
Peep
one.
Show is the next one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like what I thought of like what they were, that's like a totally different thing. And that's okay. Like bands should do whatever they want. But it's just not for me. But
Yeah.
I mean, that happens a lot with bands. It's so rare that like somebody likes a band's entire catalog from beginning to end. It's if they have a big catalog like that.
Another 1984 record is from another one of your favorite bands, though. Is the Ramones with Too Tough to Die.
I was actually just going to bring that one up. Too Tough to Die. I love this album, and I'm sure that anybody, this is the kind of thing, like, I think people who are older than me probably like would say this. Wondering if this is the album they think is the cutoff, or maybe Subterranean Jungle, the album before this, they would say is the cutoff of when they weren't good anymore. But I totally disagree. Because again, this, I was in my sophomore, junior year of high school, like, and this album came out, and the Ramones were my favorite band already at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, and every album that came out after this, like, I remember like the day it came out, and I remember going to get it and being so excited. And I saw them a lot, for starting from like 83, 84. I saw them tour on this album, and I bought my first shirt, from this album maybe. And I think it's great. I don't care how corny anyone thinks it is. I love every single second of it. Corny or not, Howling at the Moon. I don't care what you have to say. I love it.
I haven't spent as much time with this one, but you mentioned Subterranean Jungle, and that's one of my favorite Ramones records.
I love that
out of their
album
entire
too.
discography. Like, it's
Yeah, I love it too. I think it's great. But people who are like older than me, like my friends who like were seeing the Ramones like very early on, like I think they feel like they were falling apart at that point.
I mean, there's plenty of like really killer songs on this record too. I mean, it makes sense why you love it, because it was new when you were young, so it makes sense. But even like me looking at it, I was born in '86. I love like Mama's Boy and Too Tough to Die and Warthog and Durango. They open like every show with Durango.
Every show with Durango 95. It's like from that point on, and like even like I think Chasing the Night, I love that song. It just makes me happy. And like the end, like Endless Vacation, that's okay. No Go, I think that's a great ender. It's like, if it's up, I like when bands like end the album with like an up song. I think bands should do that when they play live also. I think I may have talked about this before, but like ending the show with an up song is like, to me, really crucial. And I don't know why bands do this, and my friend Ron is the one who pointed this out to me. I might have said this before in a podcast. I agree with my friend Ron. Bands should not end a show with someone else's song. I just think it's a mistake. Like end the show with your own song. Don't leave them thinking about the cover of Rockaway Beach that you did. Like that. I just think I don't know. I don't understand that. But anyway, everyone does it now. It's like standard practice now to end the show with someone else.
I feel like the best way to do it is like, yeah, you could do it towards the end of the set because it's a nice, like, it kind of gets people like pumped up again because they're like, oh, a song I know. Like maybe if they're not like the most familiar with the band they're seeing live, but you know, it's kind of the point of a cover is to play something to get the energy up again before the go home. But yeah, you're right. They shouldn't end on the cover. They should do.
And a lot of people are doing that now, especially a Ramones song. I've noticed a lot like that. I mean, I maybe either do it as the last song before an encore, if you're doing an encore, or the song before the last song. Like, I don't know. Or the song that you come back from the encore from. You know, like, because you want people to remember you and your thing. Like, that's why you're playing. But yeah. I don't know how I got onto that. Thing talking about this, but yeah, I think this is a great album. But you know, the Ramones are my favorite band, and I love almost everything that they did. I have one album I think is terrible. But,
is that the covers one?
No, I love that album. I think it's great. I think I'm a real rarity in this opinion. I think they did a very fine job with those songs, and I like those songs. And I don't think there's a bad song on that album. Yeah, the bad album is Mondo Bizarro, by the way.
That's right. I remember you saying that at one point. Yeah. And even then, I named like the one good song on that record, which is
that's like
Poison Heart.
Right.
Actually, you know what? I have come back to this album because I'm always saying how much I hate it, and I've changed my feeling that I shouldn't say I hate it. My least favorite of all Ramones songs are on this album. You know, Censorship, I think, is terrible. The Job That Ate My Brain is terrible. The worst song they ever wrote of all time is Cabbies on Crack. Terrible. That's officially their worst song. Heidi is a head case. But in between, maybe from like Poison Heart to like Tomorrow She Goes Away, like that's actually like not a terrible group of songs.
Well, I think it's got Strength to Endure on there, and that's one of my favorites of late Ramones.
That's in there. So if you can, I would say let's cut this album, get rid of the first two songs, get rid of the last three songs. And actually, I Won't Let It Happen isn't so good either. So we're going to go from Poison Heart to Tomorrow She Goes Away. It's like a nice little 10-inch EP. And suddenly, I love Mondo Bizarro.
Yeah, we get off topic crazy.
Sorry. Anyway, Too Tough to Die is great.
Yeah. I was looking at other 1984 records, and there's a couple I'll just kind of throw out. We're not gonna spend a ton of time on them. Sam Hain put out Initium. That's the first Sam Hain record after the Misfits. Pretty good. It still has the Misfits vibe. It just gets a little darker, you know, and it goes along with kind of what was going on in '84 with all the first wave of American hardcore bands are now, you know, trying something different, you know, going with a heavier direction. This is around the same time period that a lot of the hardcore bands started doing thrash records, or the glam records. There's a TSOL record, Change Today.
Yeah.
I
like that album.
I think it's the first record with their new vocalist, and it has a little bit of a goth vibe to it, but
definitely
it shifts that sound to, like, you know, 2 records later they start doing the full on like Motley Crue type stuff.
You know, that's bad.
But also, SSD put out their giant hard rock, glam rock record. Who else had some other stuff? Like, there's a few others that were doing the same thing at the same time.
This is also the year of Meat Puppets 2.
Oh, I love Meat Puppets 2. I think it's great.
That's that's the one everyone always points to, with the Meat Puppets. I'm not super into them, but yeah.
I don't know if I point to that. Let me see. I can't remember if. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah. That's a really great album. But I mean, it's so different than anything. It's so different. You know what I mean? It's not like any of the kind of stuff that it doesn't really like fit into what somebody would think if they would say, "What do you like to listen to?" And then I would play this album for them, they'd be like, "You like that?"
Well, then they
but
would recognize that one song that Nirvana covered on that record too.
oh,
That's the one where what's it called? Where the bad folks go when they die? Lake of Fire.
oh, wait, Nirvana does that?
Yeah, it was part of the Unplugged
No.
album. Yeah.
That's a good song. I mean, it's a great meat pub. The first song is like my favorite song. Split Myself in Two.
I listened to a little bit of it today, and I saw someone tag it as cowpunk, and for the longest time I never really knew what cowpunk was, and then when I read that, I was like, oh, cowpunk. Okay, I know what this is now. Echo and the Bunnymen put out Ocean Rain that year as well, which I think was a pretty big commercial hit for them.
Yeah, that's the big one for sure.
Yeah. We talked about Heaven Up Here in '81, and I think I like that sound a little better than Ocean Rain, but yeah, Ocean Rain had the big single on it. The Pogues released their first record, Red Roses for Me. I don't think it's quite as well known as some of the records that came after that, but there they are birthing Celtic punk, and
I give it a meh. I give them a meh. I give their whole entire catalog meh. I don't get it.
This is also the time period where like the other wave of hardcore bands kind of were doing stuff. So like D Cruisin' put out their self-titled that year. There's an Articles of Faith record and a Battalion of Saints record. So and those three bands are always like tied in my mind as the other hardcore bands that people don't go to as frequently, but maybe are better than we expect them to be.
Articles of Faith are so great. Really great. People should definitely check them out. I've never gotten into like Battalion of Saints so much, but I think Articles of Faith are just really right on.
And 1984, we have talked about previously when we discussed Flippers gone fishing.
your infamous Flipper episode.
Enough said.
The episode that spawned 1 million bad reviews for our show.
oh, you know what came out in '84? The Crew by 7 Seconds.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
which is perfect. A perfect album. Perfect, for what it's supposed to be. That music, that time period. I love it. It was my favorite album of that kind of music for that time period.
Is that the record that clicks for 7 seconds? Like, is that the one that people are like, there they are? Well, I guess it is the first full length. But they had a bunch of EPs.
They had a bunch of EPs, yeah. But I think this is probably, this is the thing that makes people say, like, I think most people would say this is like their favorite 7 Seconds album. I think it's great. I love it. It just makes me really happy. And, it's short, nice, and every song is short. It's just great.
And last couple things, The Cult and The Cure both released records in '84, Dreamtime and The Top. And when I was a child, I got them mixed up all the time, even though they sound nothing alike.
I'm actually not that familiar with that Cult album. I think the next one is when they kind of came into my consciousness.
Yeah, it looks like it's a double album as well. It's there's A through D sides on that record. So but one's a double or one's a live. So it's one of those where they just stuck a live record in with the new one. Kind of cheating, but
it's like their first album.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, they changed their name a bunch of times, so that's probably the first album as The Cult.
Yeah.
But they were like the Death Cult, and they were Southern Death Cult, and so yeah.
Where does The Top fit in with the Cure's discography? Is that it doesn't look like a very strong record.
It's good. A good question you're asking. I'm not like a super Cureologist.
Oh right, yeah.
But I I made a Cure playlist a while back, so if you'd like to check that out on my Spotify. So I'm on my Cure playlist. It is 43 songs of my favorite 43 Cure songs, and the top has one song on the playlist, and it is The Caterpillar.
Yeah, it's sandwiched between Pornography and The Head on the Door, which are fan favorite records. So yeah, I'm assuming it's not anyone's favorite from this time period.
Yeah, it's not bad. Honestly, I don't think The Cure have even I don't think The Cure have any album that is bad. I think they have a few that are like fine. But yeah, I think they're one of those bands that actually like there's nothing that anybody's like, ugh, pugh, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fine. I think that this album's probably good kind of like background music. You can definitely have it on. It won't disturb you, you know, it's kind of like atmospheric, you know?
Yeah. And I looked at a couple other records that came out in '84 that aren't necessarily considered punk records, but they have a relation or they're adjacent. Psychedelic Furs put out Mirror Moves, which was a big record for them.
Really big.
Financially, yeah, like it made them a lot of money.
Because that's the one with.
It's got a couple.
Heaven.
Yeah, Heaven.
Here Come Cowboys. Is that on it?
Yeah, that one's on there.
The Ghost in You, Heartbeat.
Yeah.
Those are all the hits.
Yeah. It's it's after Pretty in Pink, but like it hadn't been used because the movie hadn't come out right yet. I don't think.
Yeah, and remember, like Pretty in Pink got re-recorded for the movie.
Yeah.
So I like Mirror Moves. I think it's a little bit soft.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why a lot of people don't consider it a punk record. I mean, it's definitely
not. I mean, I don't consider any of that really a punk, but I like Mirror Moves, but I think it's soft.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was looking at a lot of the other like new wave records from around that time period, and it kind of lost its punk roots. It's a lot of soft, like Thompson Twins and Duran Duran and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very much more electronically oriented, synth oriented.
But a couple records that are kind of important. Well, one that's really important to punks in the future, not so much in '84. The Replacements put out "Let It Be," which that's a gigantic record and super influential on punk in the 2000s. I guess that's where the real influence goes from. Like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, with the Replacements and alternative rock, like, I don't know, that was important to punk and indie rock throughout the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've heard so many
punks
punk
really,
bands.
really latched onto the Replacements and started to really name check them, I feel like, in the 2000s.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, at the time, it was there was, like, a big divide. Like, if you were into punk when this came out, you didn't like this. You know what I mean? Like, and this is, and I've probably talked about this before. Like, this is what you do. You're a teenager, you are into stuff, and then you're into the next stuff that's like what you think is like the cooler people are into, and you abandoned the old stuff. So that's what I did. I was like super into what we called new wave at the time, and Replacements fell into that category. I don't, it doesn't need to make sense.
Right.
Just anything that wasn't on the radio, that was on like my alternative radio station, we called new wave. So Replacements were part of that. REM was part of that. They were underground still. And then when I got into punk, the people that I was involved with, hanging out with, thought all of this stuff was stupid. And so I abandoned it for a long, long time, many years. I didn't listen to any of the, like, kind of what I would consider my roots. And I feel sad a little bit about that because, like, I missed out on, like, going to see a lot of these bands back then. I could have seen at small places, and I didn't. I never saw the Replacements. And now I wish I had. I wish I had seen them then. Not really now. And same with The Cure. I've never seen The Cure, and I really, really regret not seeing them because they played a lot at small places. And remember, I was in New York. I could have seen like pretty much like any band,
right?
come
Yeah.
through, and I didn't. Because by this point, I was like, I'm a punk rocker. I don't like that stuff.
And the last thing I'll mention is not a punk record at all, but a lot of punk bands in the 2000s started listening to him a lot. Bruce Springsteen put out "Born in the USA" in '84. Like, I assume it's because of the Gaslight Anthem. That's why all the punks started listening to Springsteen, but not a punk artist. But definitely influential on a whole generation of musicians, like many generations after Springsteen started. But
I'm not even going to drag us into any conversation about this. I think we've already had that conversation.
I felt like it was worth mentioning.
I was going to, when you were asking me like to pick, I was like looking through the list and thinking, and I was really close to picking the Shonen Knife album that came out that year, but I was like, I don't know if this has enough of a broad appeal to be talking about Shonen Knife for however we talk. So I
Well,
saved you guys from having to talk about Shonen Knife.
well, I mean, they're still a relevant band. I feel like I see their name mentioned quite a bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I love them, and I love that album. So I would have, had a lot of fun talking about it. I think they're great, but I don't know. It just if I didn't really know what you guys would have to say about Shonen Knife.
I don't know either because I've never really dove into them. So next time you come back, maybe you have to pick one. But you did pick a record that we have lots of opinions on. So let's talk about it. We are talking about Black Flag's "Slip It In."
Hey, mama. Come on.
I don't know.
Come on. This is it.
I kind of got a boyfriend.
No, this is happening. This is the time now.
Okay.
All right, come on.
You're loose. Put your brain in the noose. The next day you regret. But you're still loose. Say you don't want it. You don't want it. Say you don't want it. Then you slip it on it. And you feel like a whore. But you did the night before. You decided to be all loose. And go all crazy. Say you don't want it. You don't want it. Say you don't want it. But then you slip it on it. Yeah. Wow. You slip it.
And why did you pick this record?
I picked this record out of all the possibilities of this year because I bought this record. This is like a memorable purchase for me. I remember where I bought it, when I bought it, and how it affected me, and like my experience of listening to this new to me, and I mean pretty new after it came out. And its like effect on my life, so that's why I chose this one.
Well, so I'll run some basics down. If you're unfamiliar with Black Flag, I'm surprised we've gotten this far without doing a Black Flag record. We did do a Henry Rollins solo record that did not age well, and we did a Circle Jerks record that we didn't like.
Which one did you talk about?
Wild in the Streets.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
interesting.
second album.
And you didn't like it? Neither of you liked it?
No,
No.
not really.
Not really. It had some okay songs, but we decided that we didn't like Keith Morris as a as a vocalist. So, Black Flag were from Hermosa Beach. No, are from Hermosa Beach because they are still playing shows. They formed in 1976. This is only their fourth studio album, full length, despite having tons of EPs and singles and comps of material that came out before. Also, this is the third LP Black Flag released in 1984. So they've only done 4 at this point.
Well, this is the third of 4 records that were released.
No, this is the fourth of 4.
No, this is the third of
records
4
in 84.
records that they released in 1984.
Yes, they also released My War and Family Man.
And the live album, right?
Right. The live album
84.
came out after.
Yeah, it came out in 85.
No,
in 84, but not too much. I think they were both released around the same time. Flip It In and Live 84.
Yeah, they squeezed it in December of 1984. They released live in 84.
It's interesting because this came out in December of 84 as well.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, so yeah, that's 4 LPs in 1 year, including a live record. It's a turning point for Black Flag. Personnel on this lineup is Henry Rollins on vocals, Greg Ginn, of course, on guitar, and Kira Rossler on bass, and Bill Stevenson on drums. This is my personal favorite lineup of Black Flag. It may not be my favorite material by Black Flag, but there's something about this lineup that I just really enjoy. It was released on SST Records, which was a busy year for them because they also released the Minutemen and Husker and
Meat Puppets,
and Saccharine Trust, and St. Vitus's first album. Like, they kind of had a big year. And it was produced by Greg and Bill and Spot, who was the house producer for SST. Dylan, why don't you take us into this record?
Okay. You said that this is your favorite lineup, but not your favorite material. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Because I've always had this lineup in my head as, oh, that's the best Black Flag lineup. But you listen to what they recorded, and it's not my favorite record. But it might be my favorite record from this year.
By them?
Yeah. My favorite Black Flag record from 1984. I mean, it's easy to, if you're going off of our brackets, if you're putting those 4 records in a playoff, I mean, it's easy to eliminate Family Man and Live in 84. Because, I mean, Live 84 is a live record, and Family Man is primarily Henry's spoken word. And, like, instrumentals. Yeah. So
it comes down to My War versus Slip It In.
It does, and I think this one wins, but maybe just barely. But I don't know. It's Black Flag. Like, they've always occupied such an important place psychically for me as a punk. A really, really early discovery for, I think, both of us getting into punk. As teenagers, just having, like, Scattered, Minor Threat, and Black Flag, and Bad Brains songs on mixed CDs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm curious to know what Anne thinks about this one, because you said you have a very vivid recollection of this record, of buying this record.
Yes, I do.
And I kind of have a similar time and place feeling about this one too, but we can get into that later.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you my little bit about buying it, and then we can kind of continue going on about how we feel. But I bought this on cassette, which is why I sent you a picture of a cassette.
Yeah.
I bought this on tape at Bleecker Bob's. Is a very well-known record store in New York. That is gone now, of course. But it was like a real, like, epicenter of the universe for a lot of people for learning about music. And I remember exactly how this went down. So I went to high school in Manhattan. I lived in Queens. I went to high school in Manhattan, and my high school was uptown. And I started after school. I would go downtown, take the train a bunch of stops down to 8th Street. Always 8th Street. It didn't matter where I was going, like in the East Village or West Village or wherever, but like the train stop was always 8th Street. That was like the center of the universe for me. I get off at 8th Street. I walk to Bleecker Bob's. I'm in my uniform. I went to Catholic school. I'm in my Catholic school uniform. So I bought it in '85. So I'm in my junior year of high school. I walk into Bleecker Bob's, and there was like a glass case, like the counter, like one part of the counter was a glass case, and there was like some maybe like extra special singles in there that might have been more expensive. I don't really remember exactly why they put stuff in there. I walked in. I did not even look around. I walked right up to that case, and inside the case were 2 cassettes. This cassette, Slip It In, and Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks. And I bought them both. I just said, I want those 2 tapes. I didn't know anything about the Slip It In. Of course I knew about the Sex Pistols, but I didn't own anything yet at that point. And that's so hard to explain a different time. Like I couldn't have a Sex Pistols or a record that said Slip It In, like an album, these big albums in my house. So I had to buy them. And I'm from the tape era that like cassettes were the thing. I had to buy them small so that they could be like hidden in like my book bag, and I could have them with me all the time so that my parents wouldn't find them. So I go in, those 2 were sitting in there. I don't even know if there were any other tapes, just those 2 tapes. I don't know. I bought
they were enshrined.
I like buried them in my book bag, my backpack. And I turned and I walked out. And I don't know what else I did. I went home. So I had to walk, and I put, I remember like later that night after, dinner or whatever, I unwrapped the one, unwrapped the other. And I think I listened to Sex Pistols first, and that I can talk about another time. But I listened to this Black Flag, Slip It In. And I mean, like both the 2 together, I mean, my life was just completely upended and changed. And I already was into punk, like in the sense that I had already been to shows, but I didn't like own punk records really. I had Ramones stuff already, but I didn't have anything like those 2 things like in my possession yet. And like I was like, holy crap, like I was like turning down, like, oh, I pray to God no one can hear what's coming out of this little ear, the headphones that came with the Walkman, that with the orange, fuzzy stuff.
They had no isolation. It was just like blasting out.
Yeah. So that's I haven't even talked about anything about my feelings about what I think about this record yet. So maybe we'll keep doing a round robin here, talking about stuff before I do that. But that was my very first experience with this album.
I was kind of worried that because we were only going to be talking about one record, that we were going to run out of things to say. And I kept finding stuff to think about and write about in my notes about this record and this time period of Black Flag. It's like, this is not a Black Flag podcast, but our logo is, a rip on the Black Flag logo. Little on the nose. Everybody has a Black Flag rip these days, but it kind of stands out weirdly. I thought it was kind of cheap to do it because it was like something quick that Dylan slapped together for us, just so we had some artwork for iTunes. And turns out a lot of people liked it. So
it's such a good. The Black Flag bars are such a good logo.
Yeah.
Like
and also like a lot of my notes are about the art and about Pettibone.
Yeah.
Or Pettibone. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's Pettibone or Pettibone, but
I've always said Pettibone. Pettibone. Yeah.
Pettibone.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the
I
artwork.
could hear a California, like Hermosa Beach. Pettibone, man.
It's an iconic album cover, and his artwork is already iconic for being on almost all the Black Flag records, a ton of the SST records, a lot of the Minutemen records, Husker Du, like tons of bands use their artwork. The most famous thing he ever did was the Sonic Youth Goo album cover.
yeah.
So he's an iconic artist, and it represents a very specific time period in American hardcore. And even then, this one stands out.
This
To
one's
me, yeah, personally, like this might be my favorite album cover out of all the Black Flag records, and maybe that Goo album cover is pretty amazing. And even I don't really like Sonic Youth that much, but
I would like to talk about the album cover, like kind of when we get around to everybody getting a chance to say stuff.
yeah, we can keep talking about the album cover because it has a lot to do with this record. It's the first Black Flag record, I believe, to have a woman on the album cover, and it's also one of the first records that Kira plays on, and it has a song that's not one of her favorites either, and it's all tied together. Like it's so much about this record is.
Well, she's famously quoted for when they got the record, her reaction to the cover was she said something like, it was something to the extent of like, why am I in this band if you guys hate women?
I mean, obviously, woman here. I don't. Am I supposed to be offended by it? Because I'm absolutely not in any way offended by this cover or this record in any way.
I don't really take any offense with the cover. I mean, maybe if I was like a hardcore Catholic, I'd be a little offended by the use of a nun, but I don't think it's an especially offensive album cover. Maybe she also had, was dealing with those guys every day anyway, so I'm sure that tied in.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not just denouncing what she said at all. I wasn't. I was kind of on a different like wavelength than what she was saying. I mean, she was there. She knows what it was. But as far as like the cover and the art, like I read a bunch of interviews with Pettibone about his art and talking about how, like, this, I guess some people were saying like, oh, your art is sexist or your art is misogynist, and he was like, like, I'm not, the art isn't me, like I'm not, I didn't, and the same with songwriting and storytelling, like the storyteller, the artist, they're not telling their story necessarily. Most of the time they're telling a story. It's not his story. It's a critique of social stuff and, social criticism. All of his art is kind of like showing like sadness, loneliness, longing, failure, disappointment, disturbing images, violence, not because he's like glorifying that. This is my opinion, that he's, it's showing it.
Like I've always felt like her reaction to the cover is a bit of a misreading of what was intended by it. Because like you wouldn't look at the Family Man cover and be like, oh, so you think like you should kill your family, right? Like you wouldn't take that literally.
Well,
so,
right, like the same, like lyrics wise, we're storytelling. The people in the songs are the characters. You know what I mean? Like and you can, it can be told wrong. It could be a bad story or a bad telling of the story. But, you know, like every single song isn't somebody's truth, you know. And like the cover, this resonates so much for me, I think, because I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I was taught by nuns. The quote, you know, because he always has like words with his art.
Mhm.
On the
Yeah.
cover, it says, "Nobody knows more than I that the less girls know, the better they are likely to be." Now, I've always read this as the nun saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the intention. I don't know if that's how people read it, but I know that that is 100% truth from the mouth of a nun. You know,
Yeah. And even if it wasn't his intent, you know, that's still how you interpreted it. So artist intent means something, but once something is out there as far as a piece of art, then it's kind of up to everyone else and their own interpretation of it. So, and I would agree with your interpretation of it too. I think most people do. I don't know if he said that or not. I think I read something that said it wasn't necessarily the nun, but I don't know if that was just like third hand remarks, but
it makes sense for it to be the nun. So if it wasn't supposed to be, it was a happy accident.
yeah. Isn't this funny that we've been talking for a long time about this record and we still haven't said anything about the music?
It's almost like we want to surprise each other.
Yeah. So I want to go first. I feel like this is one of those records that it's like I feel like you have to go track by track. I don't know why. I feel like we did that with the Henry Rollins solo record as well. But there's something about them and how this record is put together and just the sequencing.
Yeah.
It feels like the only way I can talk about it is if I break it down track by track. So let's just talk about the first track. Slip it in.
All right.
I'll go first. It has one of the best guitar lines in any Black Flag song. Kira's bass starts the song off. The arrangement is amazing. The performance vocally by Henry Rollins is amazing. It's almost, how long is it? It's a 6-minute track. That doesn't bother me at all. And yet I think it's a really gross song. I love everything about this song except the lyrics. And Henry and Susie from L7's simulated sex sounds at the end of the song there. It has some icky tones to it that I don't know if were intentional or it's just reading the song's lyrics out of context or anything. It doesn't really sound like a great song as far as like what they're trying to say. It's like about groupies, sort of.
Well, okay. Lyrically, I've always thought of it as being satirical. I've always thought of it as being making fun of like big rock and roll, getting groupies. Like it always felt like they were punching up. There's maybe one or two lines where maybe they're inhabiting the character too much, and it feels a little gross. But yeah, I've never taken this song literally. Like I've never thought like, oh, this is what. And there's maybe it's just something in Henry's performance that communicates that to me, because I think the way he handles it vocally is really, really important to understanding the lyrics. But it's not a Henry penned song. It is a
Right.
Greg song, and Greg's kind of gross.
Yeah,
Not a cool
that is
guy.
true.
Okay, now what is your take on this? Because I imagine when you heard it in '85, it's the first thing on the tape.
I honestly, that this is not one of the songs that stands out to me in terms of like lyrics at that time period. I don't know why. I don't feel like I have a memory of being like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I mean, obviously I was like, oh my God, my parents can't hear this.
Can't hear this or see the cover.
Can't hear this or see the cover, and it has to come with me everywhere I go. And you couldn't do that with an album, so I had to have tapes. So I kind of don't really remember that part specifically of my feeling. I think it was more of like, holy fuck, I have these things and oh my god, I'm a person who does this. I listen to this music. This is me, and I am this. Like, it was for me. It was like I belong to this thing that my family and even my sister would is think is gross and awful. And so I guess I kind of was like, yeah, exactly right. This is crazy. Now, remember too, like, this is the time period when I was starting to recognize that I liked women, that I was gay. So I don't know. Maybe it was less. Maybe it had less of an impact on me because of that. I don't know. But it every single thing about it thrilled me in the sense that this is not for regular people, and I am not a regular person, and I'm so excited to be right here, right now, hearing that. But I do want to say, so I have two friends that gave me, well, one friend gave me an opinion about it before we talked, and one friend, I accidentally heard my friend talking about this record just a few days ago. He did a live Facebook Live thing, and I was like, oh, I wonder what he's going to talk about today. And boop, he holds up this record, and he talked about this record, and I was like, this is so cool because. And at first I was like, no, I can't listen to what he has to say. But then I was glad, and I actually wanted to mention his name and a little bit about him. His name is Malcolm Tent, and he owned a record store called Trash American Style, which is like a awesome, great punk record store in Connecticut. For a really long time. This isn't like a plug or anything. I just want to tell people.
You can though. I mean, it's totally fine.
He's cool. So anyway, he has he has something called TPOS Records, and he's on Discogs and all that stuff. He's a great fan of music and a great guy, and he sells music and he loves music and he talks about music, and anybody in like of my time and my New York and our age, like everyone knows him, and he's awesomely cool. So anyway, I really liked what he had to say about this song, and I even like took notes about what he said because I wanted to quote him. So Malcolm, I'm quoting you here on this podcast. He calls this a morality play. He says this song is a morality play, and it's about stupid, messed up people doing things that they regret the next day, but they do it again and again and again. And I really liked that opinion because my other friend Tony, I talk a lot about my friends Tony and Ron. My friend Tony thinks this song is just gross, and not funny and piggish and a step way backwards and not nuanced and not clever and just icky. And he thinks like a band like the Cramps, he feels could do things that had like sex and tongue in cheek and it was clever, and this he thinks is just like a sledgehammer of stupidity. So I thought it was like cool to get these two different opinions about from people that are like they're both like around the same age as I am. So honestly, I don't know what the intention of the song is. but just in terms of the song itself, it's fucking great music. I mean, it's
It is.
insanely great music. I mean, if you don't like the way this song sounds, then you're not part of our thing. I mean, I can't even imagine that anyone who loves what we love could hear this song and not think that that music is stunningly amazing.
There's like there's there's like two absolutely kick-ass riffs in this song, like, and there's the stops and starts, and Henry sounds incredible. Just the way he yells "slap," like that's just
Right?
peak Henry Rollins. It sounds so good.
It's so good. And that, yeah, I remember like listening to that and like getting like just so like psyched up by it, like, and like waiting for that for him to say the next word, you know what I mean? And like, and so the other part of listening to it is that, so like the next day, and so I took the train to schools, and it was a packed subway train from Queens to Manhattan, and I have my Catholic school uniform on. I'm on the packed train, and I have my Walkman, and I have the headphones on, and I'm listening to this in the whole train ride for like the next like 30 days. I listened to this and the Sex Pistols every single day. And I remember just looking around at all the regular folks on the train. Everybody's just going to work or going to school, normal people. And I was like, they have no idea what I'm listening to. They have no fucking idea what I'm listening to. And like, I just felt like I was like the most enlightened person on earth. And like, you know, like I said, I was part of like the coolest thing that was ever invented. And like, it just like made, like transcended me, like out of that train. And you know what I mean? Like, and I just felt like my life was like, every time I had an experience like this, it was like another new beginning of like, this is my life.
Even the song itself, the way, like, we're talking about the song right now, and I'm imagining it in my head, like playing it in my head right now, and just that bass line that starts the whole song off is just pure anticipation. Like, it just yeah, like you said, you're anticipating every word he's gonna say before he says it. This song is so powerful. Like, it's shocking how good this song is, despite whatever take that you have on the lyrics. Because I've read so many different takes at this point that it's like no one really knows. It seems like only Greg knows. It's very divisive, very divisive. But yeah, like you said, you can't argue that the music is not amazing. That's track 1.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I kind of, we're going to go track by track, but I kind of divide this up into like, for me, it's like sort of a grouping of three, like 3, 2, 3.
Yeah, I know what you mean too, and I. Okay,
we'll get there.
Yeah, let's talk about the second track on the album, Black Coffee. Personally, this is my favorite Black Flag song, period. I learned it on the bass. Today, I listened to this version. 3 different live versions that they did from various like 84 and 85 recordings. There's an amazing live recording from San Francisco in 84. It's like professionally shot. It plays like half this record. I listened to the cover by Zayo for the Black on Black tribute album that had like Converge and Coalesce and Dillinger Escape Plan. I listened to the Kylesa cover, which was for a Cult Nation tribute of this record, where just they had like a bunch of different bands play every song on this record. I listened to Henry doing the version of it for the tribute to the Black Flag tribute album for the West Memphis 3, which he changes like the timing on it, and it threw me off every time he did it. This is my favorite Black Flag song, and it's nearly 5 minutes long. And again, it's another amazing riff. It's a groove that doesn't end. It's repetitive in a way. He does the chorus 4 times in this song, 4 or 5 times. And I want him to do it again every time he finishes it. I don't know what it is about this song that just like hooks me so hard, but I don't know. It's my favorite Black Flag song. completely.
This is a really high ranking one for me too. It's and maybe it's just everything. Like it's the riff, it's Henry, it's the band together, and this is a great. I mean, these first two songs are such a great argument for the Henry, Greg, Kira, Bill lineup. Like the way they sound together, it's just grooving and like just the right amount of sloppy, and it's amazing that you can just do this chorus that many times for 5 minutes and just singing about something as totally mundane as coffee making you anxious. And it's awesome.
I agree. I love it. I think it's a great song, and I think it's a great. It just flows right into this song. You know what I mean? Like it's a good pairing. Like I said, I have my little groupings. You know, I think these first three together are just phenomenal, and I love it.
Yeah. The next song is Wound Up. It's the lesser of the three, and you're right. I group the first three together, the next two together, and the last three together. Wound Up's probably the lesser of the first three tracks. It has a little bit more of a damaged vibe, but Henry's great here. It has a really good guitar line. It's missing a hook, I think. It doesn't quite have the vocal hook that it needs, but this is an example. Like I would say if you take these three songs and maybe Loose Nut and Annihilate This Week, the songs, and like throw them on together as like a single release, it would be the best thing. Personally, I would consider that the best thing Black Flag did. Yeah, Wound Up is interesting. It is not as well known as the other two songs.
A great Greg Ginn solo. Really, really good guitar playing on a record where Greg would not execute great guitar solos consistently. Well, there's a little more to say about his guitar playing on some of the later tracks, but this is a great one. This is a Henry song written by Henry lyrically. Kind of a common lyrical theme for him.
Yeah, that makes sense to say. And I agree with what you guys have said. It's the lesser of the first three, but still really good. And I like it so much. And I'm, again, like going back, I'm on the train listening to this. I get so remember I can't sing, you guys, so I'm so sorry. I mean, like I'm the worst. And I feel so let down, like being like on the train. I'm 15 or whatever, however old I was, and like going to Catholic school, and it's kind of like maybe like my version almost of like a clocked in, like it's kind of like like I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but it's just it just meant a lot to me. This, and even like into the next song, like where. Now I've put the next two into a kind of a different category. If I could kind of move into that one, if you guys don't mind. Yes. So I mean, the next song is Rat's Eyes, which is it's not like this great song. It's it's kind of like, okay, what? You're kind of like, oh, a little bit of a letdown after those three really good songs. But I still like this song, and this one for some reason I have a lot of memories and feelings of listening to this song on the subway rides and thinking about me being the person who sees the world through Rat's eyes, like looking at all these people on the train and like, and now that I'm like thinking of myself as not different than them, and I distinguish myself as different than all these regular people, you know what I mean? So actually this song actually kind of, and it's kind of it's a dumb song. I mean, I'm not trying to like, but there's no way I can say like this is a really good song, but it fit a moment for me, and I kind of put myself into the place of the person, the narrator.
So I think Rat's Eyes and the next song, Obliteration, I think these two songs are the reason why people don't like this record, or why this record is so divisive.
Yes, I would agree with that for sure.
It's smack in the middle. It undercuts all the momentum that the first three tracks set up. one, because Rat's Eyes is so slow and repetitive. I feel like this song would have been better on the back end of the record. It's like I think it should have been more towards the end. It would work a little more there. I get it. They were kind of trying to change up the pace of the album because it's been pretty
Right.
fast up until this point. But
If you're listening to this as on a record, it is the last song on A side.
yeah,
Right.
But
the next song.
then you're going to start the other side with the next song.
Yeah, that's where it really drags. See, Rat's Eyes, I get why people don't like it. It's repetitive, but it's also not as long as the 3 songs before it.
Why does it feel much longer
It
though?
feels a lot longer. And
It doesn't have any of the excitement and the the riffs and the move. It doesn't move. It crawls. But I
I've
mean,
always
that
found
goes
it
with
kind of interesting. Like
right. That
at the
goes
same
with
time.
lyrics and what the song is trying to. You know what I mean? It like sonic. If you want to say sonically, do I ever use that word? Put it meant the sound matches what it's supposed to be.
It's a weird performance for Henry. He gets really quiet and he really tries to do this raspy weird voice. It's a weird one for him. He also wrote the lyrics to this one.
Mm-hmm.
But when it starts, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Here's Rat's Eyes. But then by the end of it, I'm like, that's not actually a bad song. It's just different. But I feel like it stands out to me more than maybe a lot of the B side of My War, because that's the famous what are they doing turn for Black Flag in terms of that proto sludge super slow hardcore, and I feel like Rat's Eyes here accomplishes that better, definitely better than Obliteration.
God. Oh, I think people give it such a bad rap because it's Rat's Eyes kills the momentum and then follows with Obliteration, which is a long. Is it long? It feels long. It's
almost
6 minutes.
Yeah, it's a boring instrumental song where Greg is just noodling on his guitar.
Yes.
And it's if you'd flipped Rat's Eyes and wound up, maybe this would be more well regarded. But it's the combo right in the middle that I think that it's just the end of one side and the beginning of the next that turns people off. It feels like the side B of My War sort of thing. And you're right, Rat's Eyes is a better song than most of the B side of My War. So yeah, it gets undeserved hate, I think, due to its placement on the record.
Yeah, I don't hate, it's not I hear it and I go, oh, I hate this song. I hear it and I just say I don't want to hear this song. I mean, that's not the same as hate though.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I had to hear it, I'm not saying, oh, this is horrible. I just don't want to hear it. But I'm not a huge fan of instrumental songs in general. So I don't, and I've often wondered, is there any kind of gendered thing with hearing instrumental songs, or boys like instrumentals more? I don't know, but yeah, it's just a wasted space. Something else could have been there, or just
it's the Damaged 2
Yeah.
of this record,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the worst part of Damaged.
Yep.
And I hate instrumental songs too. I don't hate instrumental songs. I don't click with instrumental songs myself, but the only people I know who do really like instrumentals are dudes. So I don't know. I don't...
Yeah. And are they all ones that play instruments?
A majority.
Who want to be the ones playing that, noodling that.
Yeah. It is mostly only interesting if you're a guitar player, but as a guitar player who does a lot of this kind of noodling, listening to Obliteration is like what I imagine hearing me trying to write a guitar solo sounds like, which is, I don't want to listen to it. I can appreciate what he's trying to do, but it's the whole Greg Ginn's I'm doing free jazz. You're not. You're not. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, because honestly, the next song is "The Bars,"
Yeah.
and it's a great song. It's
It's a
it's a Henry and Chuck Dukowski song. I think it came from like some early demos originally, because Chuck's not in the band at this point, and it's a good song. It has some earlier Black Flag vibes, like I guess more Damaged era vibes. It's got a good bass and drum intro, like Kira and Bill killing it on. Again, they are the best rhythm section of Black Flag period, I think. It's got like a driving beat to it, but then the guitar has a lot of these extended like notes. It's not a ton of strumming, but vocally it's really strong. It's good. It's a really good song. I think it should have started the B-side. I think Obliteration shouldn't have been on the record at all, but
It should have been obliterated.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good song, and definitely it would have definitely changed the whole tone and reception of this album if it had been the first song on the B-side for sure.
yeah, it's interesting. It's a really underrated song in Black Flag's discography, and it's really strong. Like it struck me, and like at first I was thinking like, well, maybe like is this just like kind of refreshing after Rat's Eyes and Obliteration? But I've listened to this song separately on its own today and was really struck by it again. Like it's a really, really good song. Everyone sounds really, really good together. Again, like this is one of those great moments, one of those great examples of this lineup, what they could do. I love Bill's snare roll on it. It's and the way it locks in with Henry's vocals. It's awesome.
There was a girl I knew. She got the prison inside. She cursed her keeper and swore she'd get free. Every time I see, I got my hand wrapped around the bar. I want out right now. She made an angel's flight on angel wings. Jumped out her apartment window and hit the stoop below. Every time I see, I got my hand wrapped around the bar. I can't shut off my mind. And now I'm waiting. My hands are wrapped around the bars. I'm burning. My soul is pushed against the bars. The bars, the lie, the lie, the lie, the lie, lie, the tail behind my eyes. Oh!
And then it goes into My Ghetto, which is, it's often called the first power violence song. I don't necessarily agree with it. I
Yeah,
think
I don't agree with that either. I'm not sure I understand where that comes from. Because
Yeah,
I was reading about that too, and I was like, what?
I really don't get it. Because, like, was grind really a thing yet in 84? I feel like not really. I think
No.
Napalm Death was a little later as far as popularizing. It's a short song, but like Black Flag had way shorter songs prior to this. Rise Above is not long.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
if
like
power violence, here's how it is explained: extremely dissonant and fast subgenre of hardcore punk, closely related to thrashcore and grindcore. I mean, this song to me doesn't fit that description.
no, it just feels like Nervous Again era. Black
Yeah.
Flag.
Yeah,
I didn't
Just short
I
and
didn't
fast.
get because in '84, there's shorter, faster, more dissonant hardcore songs.
Yeah. I don't know
Like-
why this particular song is the one that people point out. Because it doesn't sound anything like a power violence song to me.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I
a
don't even
decent
know that I
song.
even remembered that power violence existed until I started studying again about this, and I was like, oh, right, that was like, short, I mean, there's not that many bands that like fall into power violence. It wasn't like Man is the Bastard and what is
Yeah.
C.
They
See.
they blend together with a lot of grind bands too.
I mean, I don't know. Well, okay. Maybe Man is the Bastard is the connection. Because Man is the Bastard is definitely very influenced by this era of Black Flag. As far as like fast,
Yeah.
dissonant, and slow, sludgy stuff. Maybe that's where people are drawing that line. But it just feels like a revisionist, like, oh, this is basically like people do that all the time with like every they'll find a Brian Eno song and say, oh, this is like shoegaze like 10 years early. And it's like, no, it's just weird Brian Eno. Like
People who are like, oh, the Who were like proto-punk. It's like, they weren't really.
Nope.
I mean, they were really influential to
I know.
punk bands, but
Yeah.
they're just a fast rock band.
Yeah.
Well, it's even like my friend Ron says that like what everyone now calls psychedelic, like the music from the '60s that we call the psychedelic era, and he said that they did not use that word. That was not at all any. That was a later creation to
Mhm.
Yeah.
put that word onto that music.
And then I guess we can talk about the last track on the record. You're Not Evil. It's fine. It's
It's really good for being 7 minutes long.
yeah, with a lot of noodling. I'd say it's probably the second weakest song on the record.
Second weakest, not the
Yeah.
third weakest.
Yeah, I think Rat
Put
Size is a
Rat
little.
Size above it.
I would, because Rat Size is going for something, and I get what they're doing. I just don't like you said. I just don't want to hear it. This I actively dislike. I think it's too long, and it's too much what Obliteration is, just with Henry singing.
Yeah, I hear that, and I'm not a fan of long songs ever. But I don't know. I don't mind it. I feel like it kind of brings the album out. It takes you out, and it's fine, especially because the song before it is very short.
Yeah.
Much shorter than anything else on the album.
Yeah, and they run into each other. It makes sense. You have a super short song and then a really long song, so they pair well together.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the pairings of the songs. The groupings.
Mhm.
The first three and then these last three. I feel like though, forget about the middle two. Let's pretend that those aren't here. Like if those weren't on the album, I feel like this album, I mean, I got 50 thoughts going. Let me go with one.
Yeah.
Without those two, I feel like this album is like more cohesive, like in a way that none of the other albums are, in terms of it feels like it's an album meant to be the first song to the last song. Like it feels like it's supposed to be an album of these songs are also be together. Like I don't know that I feel like any other album has this level of that cohesiveness, even with its flaws, because like every album is flawed. They don't have a 10 album, an album that you're going to give a 10 to. Not my opinion. Even like Damage, it's great, has great songs, but I mean, it's really that's just a lot of pieces put together.
Yeah.
And then other stuff, it's something always like ruins the album. There's an obliteration on every album.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then
last half of my war.
Have like B, right?
there's In My Head, which is just like, who likes In My Head?
Right.
Loose Nut has 2 good songs and a bunch of like nothing. And then even the 2 good songs have a weird production value to them. Loose Nut has a strange like late 80s production value to it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if I mean, they just do themselves in every time by ruining it with stuff. But you know what I mean? Like if you could like redo this record, take those two out, and just have it be, the first three and the other three, like that would be like a kick-ass tight record.
Yeah, it would. It would be like a tight record. I think it'd be well regarded. It would
Yes.
probably be considered the second best record.
I still regard this album highly, despite those two songs, though.
Do you like this one more than My War?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that B-side of My War just
It's such a
kills
drag.
that record.
Yeah, and I just feel like My War just doesn't have a groove. Like I don't feel like I get into a groove with My War. Like this one, I get into a groove, even with Rat Size. So I'm gonna allow Rat Size in this thing. I'm only obliterating obliteration because Rat Size I feel like still gives me a groove personally because of my experience with it. I feel like you really move from song to song and you're in it. I'm in it. My War, I feel like I'm in it, then I'm not in it, then I am again, and then I'm not, and then I'm really not.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Rat
Go ahead.
Rat Size can stay if you resequence the record, but you have to get rid of obliteration.
You must.
So I would move Rat Size to the B side. I don't know if you can even make this fit on the B side. Move Rat Size to the B side between the bars and My Ghetto. Perfect.
All right. All right. I'll take that.
What is it about Black Flag that's so fun to like just break it apart like this to dissect? Is it just the misses? Like, is it just like the extremity of like great to bad songs?
Maybe, because I feel like if we were talking about Damaged, we wouldn't break it down as much. You'd be like, yeah, there's 3 good songs in a row and then a bad one. Like,
And you know what's funny? We spent this whole time talking and we didn't get into that conversation that always happens when people talk about Black Flag. Who's your favorite vocalist? And now, of course, we're talking about a specific album, so we didn't have to get into that. But I'm glad we didn't, because it wasn't like required for this conversation. You know what I mean?
right. And there was a Hard Times article that I even shared today that was, I really do want to call this out because it's such a great headline that they wrote. It is, Punk Dad really only able to homeschool kids on history of Black Flag lineup changes. And it is. It's the discussion that always happens. Are you a Keith Morris fan? Are you a Dez fan? Are you a Chavo Pederast fan?
But can we? I don't want to get into this conversation, but I do want to say you were talking about Circle Jerks earlier, and it came down to that you don't like his voice. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I just think he's kind of weak. I think he's the weakest of the 3 greats.
I think I'm only going to talk about. I'm not going to, unless you guys want to talk about it. But I will say I think he's the weakest of the Black Flag vocalists. I don't think Black Flag's songs fit his style of singing and his like tongue in cheek almost. Like he's like, I feel like he's always winking, and I feel like that Circle Jerks music and their style is much more apropos for his voice, and I appreciate him in Circle Jerks, and I think I love Off. I think Off is fabulous, fantastic, awesome. But yeah, I just think he's like light for Black Flag. He just doesn't have like that like gravity that I want.
Yeah. I take it Henry is your favorite?
No.
Oh, are you
I'm not a one of these people that has to have a favorite and like hit them all against each other. Honestly, like that doesn't interest me. However, I really would say probably Ron Chavo probably has my favorite voice, but of course, I mean Henry did all this stuff, and of course how could you, for someone to say Henry's my 4th favorite I think is ridiculous. It's silly. Like he sang on like all the albums, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
And
But
people do that though, you know?
Forcing me to rank them, I would say I probably like enjoy the sound of Chavo Ron's voice the most. But Henry is the one there, so he's next. And then Des, and then Keith. But I don't hate any of them, and I would happily listen to every single one of them sing all of these songs
Well,
over practically any other dumb music that people listen to.
I mean, you're right. It's the most tired conversation you can have about Black Flag. So yeah, we don't have to get into like the merits of each member.
But
They all served a
I
purpose.
I love like all the early stuff. I mean, I love listening to Everything Went Black. I mean, for a long time, I said that's my favorite Black Flag record. Which is kind of silly to say, but I love it, and you get to hear like the same song 3 times by 3 different vocalists. That's kind of cool. And the thing is, they're all 3 good. But like Ron singing like "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme," to me, like you kind of can't beat that. That might be like my favorite Black Flag moment. But no, I dig this stuff. Like I said, I like this. What we're talking about, this album. I don't really go past this album though.
No, there's not really a lot of reason to.
Well, that reminds me of my kind of time and place with this record.
Oh yeah. Wow, full circle.
I have a very, very vivid memory of sitting in my yard in 2009, the summer of 2009, after my first year of college. I had started dating someone and we had broken up within that year. We're married now. But I was a heartbroken 19-year-old punk stealing wireless from my neighbor's house and downloading music. And that summer I basically did the Black Flag discography, because I think at that point I hadn't really listened to all of their records. So I have these vivid memories of listening to My War and Family Man and Slip It In and then Loose Nut, and then I stopped. I mean, like 2 good songs on that record. But it's funny to have that. And Black Flag, like I have all of these, like, because I have a Black Flag shirt that I bought at Hot Topic in like 2008, and I remember wearing that shirt all these different places and having all of these funny interactions and people projecting like their opinion on Black Flag, and they're asking what's your favorite. I remember standing in line to see Off With Their Heads and Against Me, and the guy in line in front of us like turns and sees my Black Flag shirt and asks me what's my favorite lineup, and I think I probably said the Slip It In lineup or whatever.
And then he scoffed and walked away.
I think he agreed. And I remember wearing that shirt and having like playing a show with my death metal band. And like one of the other bands that played this show, like the guy just like yelling the lyrics of probably Six Pack at me. And it's my proudly obliterated Black Flag shirt that is covered in grass stains because I wore it playing frisbee and slipped and got it covered in grass stains, and it has all these like holes in it from being washed, and it's just appropriately destroyed. The perfect amount of wear for a Black Flag shirt. You can't wear a clean Black Flag shirt with like, you got to cut the sleeves off.
My sleeves of mine are totally cut off.
you have to destroy it, whether intentionally or accidentally. Like it can't be perfect.
It is so funny that they chose like a white shirt. It's the most iconic shirt from that time period. It is a white shirt.
It's gonna get sweaty.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you guys. To maybe just sort of start wrapping it up. Have either of you seen any version of a Black Flag, anything?
No. The only thing I've seen is Henry Rollins doing spoken word. Those are fun.
I love Henry Rollins spoken word. It's
genuinely entertaining.
I think it's wonderful. One like a really, really love. I've only seen him do it one time, and I thought it was really, really an amazing experience to like watch an entire crowd of punk rockers just standing like rapt at attention, listening to him speak. It was really. I saw him at CBGB. It was fascinating just to watch that. Like, and he was great, of course. I loved it. But just like watching the crowd, and watching them watch him, and like, you know what I mean? Like to be like in this venue where you've seen tons and tons of bands, and usually there's so much like movement and action and noise, and now it's like silent. He's just talking. It's really interesting.
What era of his spoken word was it? Was it like the more poetry type stuff, or like the more like
No,
storyteller?
he was storytelling, talking.
Yeah.
So I guess it probably still lived in New York at the time. I don't. So it might have been like 1990.
Okay.
Maybe.
When he kind of made that switch right around that time.
Yeah, he was publishing poetry books, but it wasn't. He didn't do poetry reading at this. This was probably like the beginning of like really just like talking.
Yeah. The actually interesting stuff, because I don't really want to hear him read poetry.
No. But I have seen one incarnation of this band.
Which one did you get?
I didn't get the good one.
Oh.
I didn't get a good one.
Oh no.
I got so all right. Well, I'm trying to remember like whenever like they first reformed, maybe like was it like 2013? Maybe.
You got the what the era Black Flag?
Yeah, it was so bad, and I was so sad because I'd never seen them before. It was, I think, actually what the was like had come out like that day or that week.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was so sad. And the thing is, though, it was Ron singing.
Yeah.
Chavo. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna see. Okay, I was like, all right, it's not like Black Flag, but I'm gonna see Chavo and I'm gonna see Greg Ginn. And I didn't realize. I guess I was like out of the loop. I didn't realize Greg Ginn was like a douchebag. Because like I met him that night and I took my picture with him, and then later I was like, oh, everybody hates him. But anyway, so I saw that tour, and it was mostly bad, but I still had fun because I always still have fun. I had fun anyway, and I'm saying that for my friend Ron, who was with me, and Tony was with me, and we all had fun anyway. And my friend Kelly, and it was like kind of like a New York like punk rock school reunion, because like literally every person I ever knew in the punk scene in New York was there, because it's like Black Flag got back together ish.
Yeah.
We have to go. We're gonna see all our friends, and so Ryan and all these other people. So that part was super fun, and I had a great time.
At least you got to see one of the classic singers, and not like Mike. What's his name? Vallely.
No, I did not see Mike Vallely. I got to see that because Ron was only on for like that little bit of that tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anymore. Now I of course everyone's like, you should see Flag.
Mm-hmm.
Instead they're great, and I'm sure they're great and they sound great. But then it is Keith singing, and I'm like, well, I like him in Circle Jerks, and I like him in Off.
Yeah. Do they even do Flag anymore? Have they been stopped from doing that?
Yeah, I don't think it's happened recently. Yeah. But anybody I know that saw Flag said that it was fantastic. So and I trust those people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, never seen any version of Black Flag live. We almost got to see Rollins' band.
Yeah.
With X.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right when
Rollins band. I forgot about that. I've seen them several times.
This was the lineup. This was like the reunion of the original lineup. So like, because they had that weird split where like basically the band was Mother Superior was the name of that band or something.
Oh yeah. So
like he did like a reunion tour with the guys from the first like 3 or 4 like the good Rollins band records. And then like right after that he was like, I don't want to see any of these people ever again. Just being Henry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was never like I never got into Ramones band. I mean, they were like seeing them live was fine, and seeing Henry live is good. He's good to see live.
Yeah.
Performer. I saw them open up for the Beastie Boys.
Wow. Wow, that'd be a wild show.
It was a really fun show. And like they kind of, they kind of came out together. He came out and goofed around with them a little bit. And they had like Kate, the original Beastie Boys drummer, came and played a bunch of songs with them. And that was super cool. And then I saw them at Rollins Band at like a work tour thing, like the one or like I think I went to work for like 2 times just because the Ghoulies were there. But
Well, we had talked nearly for 2 hours about one Black Flag
we
record.
had one record.
That's amazing. I did not expect that. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for coming back and being our first guest back in our new format.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so happy that we did this, and I think we needed to do this for sure.
Yeah, I had even when I decided that we should start doing the show again, there was still a part of me that was very hesitant to get it going. And then we had our conversation with Adam, and it just like invigorated me to get the previous episode edited and done, start lining up people, because I missed doing this, and I didn't know I missed it, or maybe I just need the outlet. But yeah, it's been fun doing these again, and I honestly think these are some of the best ones we've done in a while. So
Well, you
thank.
know that I will come back anytime.
Oh yeah, for sure. We need to have you on for a bracket episode because that was so much fun.
You can get a lot of hate mail though if you have me on for a bracket episode because I'll be like, I don't even know what they sound like, but I picked them anyway because I just think the other band is stupid.
We'd get you a lineup. We'd have you approve every band that we entered on there before we start the.
It'd be funny though if it was like that. I mean, it's probably funnier if it was like that than if it was all things I actually liked. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be funny if there's like, whatever. What was the one on the top right, the very top right?
of ours,
Yeah.
of the pop punk one.
Yeah.
It was Blink-182, or top
No,
right was Goldfinger versus
Oh, yeah, I was
AFI.
like, Goldfinger, what the fuck? Like, I mean, really? Come on, guys. But remember, I'm an old person.
Well, we'll have you on for the Midwestern emo episode.
I think I saw Goldfinger.
Probably.
Because I think they played with Les and Jake a lot, and I've seen Les and.
Yeah, that sounds right. Do you have anything you want to plug as far as social medias or your website?
Just, the machineshoprocks.com, and it's still going strong. Actually, it has been busier than ever with everybody sitting around at home.
That's awesome.
But I'm sending things out. I'm being safe and careful with packing and all that kind of stuff, and no one else has like access to any of the stuff but me. I plugged my friend's thing, TPOS Records. So, just being a good buddy to my friend Malcolm Tent. But yeah, that's pretty much it, just rocking, doing my thing.
Well, we'll have links to all those in the notes. And one of our favorite things about the show is being able to promote our friends and people we've met along the way. So plug anybody that you want to, and we have all the same social medias as always. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, @PunkLottoPod. We have a voicemail line. Well, I haven't received a message in a long time, but I haven't really been plugging it that hard. It's 202-688-PUNK. It's 202-688-PUNK. Leave us a voicemail. Tell us your favorite lineup of Black Flag.
We didn't even talk about the fact that Kira is like an Emmy Award winner for like the rest of her life.
I watched so many videos of Black Flag from 84 and 85, and I just loved watching her and Bill in time together. I read a lot of excerpts from that book, Spray Paint the Wall, for this episode, and it just made me fall in love with both of them. I was like, I didn't realize how much I liked both of them. I already liked Kira, but them in the band together.
Yeah, really great.
They're amazing.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about that her brother was in a great band, the Screamers. So we'll talk about that someday too.
He was in 45 Grave too.
45 Graves, the Screamers, and like a bunch of other bands. So DC3.
Yeah, I mean, Black Flag is a limitless fount of discussion. But I guess that'll do it for this week. And thank you, everyone, for listening.